One of the biggest storylines of spring training so far has been Jacob Young. He's just coming off being a Gold Glove finalist across the National League. Could he have a big season in 2025?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, check us out over on Twitter. And of course, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcast, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, the video version of this podcast. Check us out over on YouTube. A little bit later on in today's show, Mark Lerner, the owner of the Washington Nationals, he dropped some, hints, if whatever you want to call it, saying that, well, they're not ready to sign that star to a huge contract at this point. Well, maybe it's next offseason and there will be a star in free agency. And we're going to discuss that and who that is in the third segment of today's program. But in the second segment, we're going to get you caught up on all the biggest headlines so far down at West Palm Beach for the Washington Nationals. What are some headlines? What do they mean? And what is going on for your Nationals as they get ready to play their first game in just 2 days? So we'll discuss that later on in today's show. But we start off with Jacob Young. He has been, in my opinion, probably the biggest storyline at this point in time, just with on-baseball field stuff. Jacob Young has come into camp with a totally new body. And this makes me think of this exact thing. Remember in 2012 when Bryce Harper was 19, 20 years old when he first came up into the big leagues? He was a pretty big kid for being 19, but overall was pretty skinny for being in the major leagues. And then he goes into 2013 and came back a totally new person, was ripped, and it was like, oh my God, this guy is like a completely new person at this point. Jacob Young is going into 2025 with that exact mindset. He has come into camp with a completely different body. Now, not totally different. Like, he is not some honcho man, but for being kind of like he was always fit, being like the skinny, kind of speedy guy in center field who covers all the ground in the world, he is now like that jacked guy that you're going to see out there in center field. And this could go two different ways. But I think that the Nationals, they probably know what they're going to get from their Gold Glove finalists in center field. I think the Nationals could be bound for a pretty damn good season for Jacob Young. Let me preface it by saying this. I think Jacob Young is a good overall player. He is a great defender, one of the best center fielders in all of baseball. My one big but, before I should be talking about how good he is defensively, is that he is not up to par offensively. But because he is so good defensively, he could have a lower ceiling offensively and be totally fine with that. Meaning this, let's get into the numbers of it from this past season. Jacob Young, offensively speaking, was not very good. Had a 648 OPS this past year. His slugging went down, his on-base percentage went down, and his batting average went up by 4 points. He did hit 3 home runs, which is 3 more than what he hit in his rookie season when he played 33 games back in 2023. He stole 33 bases, got caught stealing 10 times, even though after you're one of the fastest players in baseball, so it's a little absurd. Struck out 102 times in those 150 games that he played in. But Jacob Young, I think that right now, if you were to tell me this, if he were to get his OPS plus up to like a 98 to that 100 range, where you're right around an average major league hitter, I would be totally fine with Jacob Young being a Washington National and being a starting center fielder here for hopefully the next 5+ seasons. Because Jacob Young is not a free agent until 2030. Meaning he's got 2025, 26, 27, 28, and 29. We have a lot of time of this guy who is a great defender, which we all know already, who could be roaming the outfield here. But since coming in with this new body, what are some of the traits that Jacob Young comes with? Well, when I think of Jacob Young, defensively, that's going to be the number one. He was a Gold Glove finalist and should have won the Gold Glove in center field over the Rockies center fielder, but we can get into that in a different day. I also think of speed. Since putting on all of this muscle, how will that affect his speed? What will he be on the base path? Because Jacob Young, probably right now, sitting here today, he might be your best overall base runner. And for a team that has been really bad on the base pass, as a team with seeing like CJ Abrams run into outs, or in years past seeing Jeimer Candelario run into outs, and Joey Meneses trying to stretch a pretty obvious single into a double back in 2023, we've seen it all with bad base running. Jacob Young is actually a pretty damn good base runner, and he's smart out there. Will that affect him, though? Putting on some weight, putting on some muscle, we don't know at this point. But I think with Jacob kind of putting on all of this muscle, this is going to be a good addition for the Nationals. And if you look at kind of what the projections are today, I'm on Baseball Reference right now, and they projected to hit 6 home runs. No biggie. You're a major leaguer. We expect that. And they also expect him to have a 682 OPS, which would be his career high up to this point. Jacob Young could just completely stun us all, because I think he does have the makeup to be a good offensive player. He is so fast. He is pretty well disciplined at the plate, considering all things. And he's got the baseball smarts. Like, he's got the IQ to have this all click and to put in all the work. Because one thing is clear is that he worked his you-know-what off this offseason. And it's showing right now in camp. And by the way, Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo, they never had a doubt about Jacob Young. Like, they know months ago, they knew that he was going to be the starting center fielder. I was the dummy here, thinking that I'd consider trading Jacob Young, coming off a Gold Glove year. Maybe someone like the Tampa Bay Rays sees something in him that we don't, because I was pretty down on him offensively. Now, when you are this good defensively, it becomes a better conversation. But if he wasn't, and let's say he was just a tick above average defensively, then we'd be having a different conversation, and I wouldn't want him in center field. But the Nationals see something. And getting to talk with him just a little bit every now and then when I'm around the Nationals and, do what we have to do, you can tell that this means something to him. He is not one of those guys where Davey Martinez has to worry about being in a casino until 6 a.m. He's not one of those guys that you have to worry about being a locker room cancer. And really, the Nationals don't have that at all. So I think this is going to kind of be that season where Jacob Young might have it all click. And if it does, we're looking at a potential center fielder for the Nationals for hopefully the next 5 to 10 years. Because if you look at some of his stuff, again, defensive WAR, top 6 in the National League. Stolen bases, 5th in the National League. Sack hits, 2nd in the National League. This guy is a very, very legit outfielder. And also, his range factor for games as an outfielder finished 3rd in the National League this past year. And also, as a center fielder, he finished 3rd in that category as well. Jacob Young, man, this could be the season where it all clicks. And I think that with the Nationals, if he were to hit for a little bit more power, get on base at a slightly higher rate, we could be looking at a very, very good center fielder for hopefully the next 5 to 10 years to come. So having him come in with this new body, it's an exciting thing. And he could be having a huge season for the Nationals as we get ready to set on and sail into a 2025 baseball season that could be a doozy. So make sure to watch out for Jacob Young as we enter 2025. But as we were talking about him, there are some spring training headlines. He's probably the main one, but what are the others? Has to do with James Wood. You've got Travis Sikora, Davey Martinez. I'm going to get you caught up on all the big spring training headlines as we're just 2 days away from our first spring training games. You will not want to miss it. But before we get into it, let me tell you about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller for longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety, and it's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to, and if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite that I know my mom loves, and I also know my dad loves as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Again, visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Later on, there is a superstar heading into free agency. Who is it, and could the Nationals be in on this said superstar? Well, according to Mark Lerner, they're not out of the market for it. So we'll have that discussion for you in the third segment of today's program. But what are the biggest spring training headlines so far? And this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to get you caught up on all things Washington Nationals so far within the first few days of having full squad there and ready. The number one, James Wood is battling quad tendonitis, and it does not seem to be a serious injury, but it is certainly something to monitor. And we saw this because he was not participating in defensive drills the other day, although he was taking BP and was taking live at-bats. So I think overall, it's not that concerning with James Wood. But I will say this, it's certainly never a good thing. And I don't really expect this to linger at this point, but I prefer my superstar outfielder who is coming into his second big league camp not to be injured entering this season. But here we are. It's no big deal. It's not going to be something that should linger moving forward. It has over the last few weeks into spring training, but it's not going to be something that I'm overall concerned with. I think that's the point of the story. But I also saw this yesterday is that James Wood was going up against Harley and Susanna, one of the Nationals' top pitching prospects. And I thought Mark Zuckerman had this video, by the way. He tried to take a swing at one of Harley and Susanna's sliders. And oh my God, Susanna is a freak of nature out there. Again, both those guys coming in that Juan Soto deal, it just kind of goes to show you how good of a trade that was from Mike Rizzo back in 2022. So I thought that was really cool. But James Wood, a little banged up as spring training goes on. It's no big deal for me, but it does make some headlines. CJ Abrams is having a great perspective so far after last season's debacle in AAA. And this was one thing that was kind of a little bit under the radar kind of deal from the Nationals. When CJ Abrams was optioned to AAA in the final week of the season, after we all know what happened, it's beyond us. CJ was, and then at first Davey was asked about CJ Abrams, and he was like, well, he's hard to get a hold of. And everyone was like, oh my God, is this a thing? Is he upset with the organization? Is the organization upset with him? Who knows what's going to happen? Well, that bug has been squashed because CJ Abrams, he is smiling. He is himself. He's been at West Palm Beach for quite some time now, putting in the work. And CJ is doing just fine as we come into the 2025 season. He has put this all behind him. He has understood that he made a mistake, and he has acknowledged that he has made a mistake. And Davey Martinez has said the same as well. This is all behind him. And this is what you would have wanted if you're a Nationals fan out there. Again, CJ Abrams, like, the time is now. We understand that. The first season when he came up, it was a struggle bus for him. The second season, the first half in 2023, it was pretty rough. And then the second half, he really took off, stole like 40 bases in like 80 games, something insane like that. And then this past year started off, was an all-star. I mean, we all thought we had the next superstar shortstop, and then it completely fell off in the second half. And then ultimately he was optioned back in September after that casino incident. But CJ Abrams, the time is now, man. Like, you've put this behind you. You're no longer like the young guy anymore. Like, this is your third full big league season that you're going into. I expect you to hit the ground running in 2025. You're 24 years old now. You're no longer 21, 22, and 23 like you were the 3 previous seasons, but this is going to be the year for CJ Abrams. And if he does struggle, let's say he's hovering like around like a 700 OPS by mid-July, people will be talking about the future of CJ because I've been on board. I think he is the shortstop of the future. I think the Nationals should have gone this offseason and have one of the top priorities be to extend CJ Abrams. Now, it's hard to sell the fan base, the organization on that, especially with the way that this past season ended for him. But he's still going to be a huge part of the future for this team. And I'm just happy to see that all of this is behind him at this point. This is going to be one of those storylines that people will be watching, and not the casino stuff. It's going to be what happens on the field. Because again, heading into year 3, as we've been talking about, this is a big year for him. Like, yes, it does take a while for younger prospects to really kind of find their feet in the majors, but CJ has been here, man. This guy is no longer a prospect. He is a veteran. This is his third season up in the bigs, or going into his 4th at this point. We expect him to do good things, and we expect him to do good things like now. And I've always said this about CJ, but if he were drafted by the Nationals, he would never have been on that fast track up into the majors. He was a great prospect, but he would have been called up likely like maybe sometime in 2022. That's what would have happened. But he was with the Padres. They flew him up the majors. Tatis was out. And all of a sudden, he was one of your starters on opening day. So that's where CJ Abrams stands. And the time is now. And I think that you will see a much better version of CJ Abrams. Lastly, Davey Martinez has said, we're done with the losing. This is all verbatim. But the future is here. The core is here. We're no longer waiting for it. You've got Dylan Cruz. You've got James Wood. You've got Mackenzie Gore. You've got CJ Abrams, Luis Garcia Jr., Jake Irvin, DJ Hurst, Trevor Williams, Keibert Ruiz, Jacob Young, Brady House coming up, knocking on the door of the majors. The time is now. And that is a big deal. Because again, you don't have to talk about, man, I can't wait to see Dylan Cruz come up and make his debut. That's been done. You don't have to tell your friends, wait till you see this guy James Wood come up. He's 6'7" and he's a freak. That's been done, and people should know about him. Wait till you see CJ Abrams. He's got a little power, speed. He can play some defense and make some web gem plays. That has been done. Luis Garcia Jr. might be one of the better offensive second basemen in all of baseball statistically. You don't have to say that. That has been done. Hopefully you can build on that going into 2025. But the future is here. And I don't have any doubt in that. With that said in mind, the future is here, right? Davey Martinez said it himself. Why didn't Mark Lerner say that? I cannot get that out of my mind. And I really did not plan to go this route, but still. If Davey Martinez, the manager who has won a World Series here, says that the future is here and the core is within this building, why isn't our owner acknowledging that? Instead, you're going out talking to the Washington Post with Barry's Faluga, which again, a great piece on them, and said, we just felt like we weren't ready to spend. Well, Davey Martinez said it himself, man. He outed you. They were ready, and the core is here right now. So what's the real reason? Well, luckily for Mark Lerner, you missed the boat on all the top guys this next season, or this off season, but guess what? You've got one guy, and that one guy is going to be a legend in baseball. And there's only one of these guys in this upcoming free agency class. So let's discuss that after we tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So as we were saying, there is a superstar for the Nationals in 2026 for free agency. And the one guy that you're going to want to keep your eye out on is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He will be hitting free agency. He is going to be 27 years old. And the guy has been one of the most consistent, everyday players over the last 4 years. He has played in 150 games plus over these past 4 seasons, has finished second in the MVP race, had some off years considering things that he has done in the past, but he is now heading into free agency after this season because the Blue Jays were not even close to what he was trying to get from Toronto. Here's the thing, though. Will the Nationals decide to spend? In tying this in, the Nationals should obviously try to go after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Do I think they will land him? I do not. And I'm sorry, but if you do, it's wishful thinking. And I guess you could say there's a chance, but I don't think they do that. You ever heard of the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees? Hell, even a team like the Angels or the Padres, or name that other surprise team. They could likely go in on Vladdy as well. And also, consider this. If you look at next year's free agency class, it's bad. Not very good whatsoever. You don't have your Juan Soto. You don't have a Corbin Burns. It's a solid overall class, I guess, at best. But even then, there's nothing that really appeals to me like a Juan Soto or an Alex Bregman or a couple other free agents from this past offseason. It is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and then it's Gleyber Torres. Then you have Josh Naylor, Yohan Moncada, Luis Arias, Paul Goldschmidt. If this was a few years ago, yeah, this would be an awesome class. But it's not. Bo Bichette is also in that mix. As far as pitchers go, you've got a Pete Alonso, or Pete Alonso's not a pitcher, obviously, but he's got a player option in which he could opt out of his deal with the Mets. There's also someone like Ha-Sung Kim. You also have like an Alex Bregman, and of course a Trevor Story as well, who will most certainly opt into his contract, but he could be one. And then you got like Kyle Farmer, who is a shortstop. And I mean, again, I don't know what the Nationals are thinking at this point, but this free agency class going into this offseason is not all too strong. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of teams will be prying for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and as they should, by the way. He is young. He is just getting into the prime of his career. He's coming off a great season. And if you saw his press conference yesterday and you say that that does not seem like a motivated man, you are wrong. He is going to go off this offseason. Or this season, not offseason. I think that this guy is going to go for like 45 to 50 home runs. He's going to bat nearly 300, and he's going to have like a 1050 OPS and just have a massive season and get like a $600 million deal. That is my prediction for Vladdy Jr. at this point in time. He will be the prize free agent from for this next upcoming offseason, and he should be. He's a very good offensive player and has just unique power that you do not see every single day. So the Nationals, according to Mark Lerner, they're not ready right now to sign that superstar, but there's only one next offseason, and it might just be him. And there's also Dylan Cease, who will be a free agent after the season. But if you ask me, I'm not 100% sold on Dylan Cease being the stud that he is. So we'll see what the Nationals and what baseball decides to do. But Vladdy Jr. is heading into free agency, and I can't wait for him to be a Washington National, right? Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your pods. And of course, you can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11. By next Monday, we will have a brand new studio. If you look around here on YouTube, you'll see it's a little empty, but it's going to be done here in a few days. So keep your eyes on that and check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.